Nobody told Margaret Billings from Doncaster she was breaking any rules. She had been doing it for 40 years, walking into her local Tesco at 7:30 every evening and filling her trolley with food that cost less than a bag of crisps. Then one Tuesday in 2019, a store manager pulled her aside and told her she was no longer welcome in the reduced aisle before 8 p.m. Margaret was 74. She had fed a family of 5 on a cleaner's wage and never once claimed a penny she was not entitled to. But here is what Tesco did not count on. Margaret knew 24 other tricks just like that one. And number 9 on this list got a pensioner in Bristol formally banned from a supermarket for 6 months. Number 17 is so effective that Aldi changed its bakery policy in 3 regions to stop it. These are the 25 free food loopholes British pensioners have been quietly using for decades, and the tactics supermarkets deployed to shut them down. Number 25. The yellow sticker circuit. Every pensioner worth their bus pass knows the yellow sticker round. But the trick was never about showing up at random. It was about knowing the exact schedule. In most Tesco stores between 2018 and 2022, the first markdown happened around 3 p.m, knocking 25% off short-dated items. The second hit at 5 p.m, taking it to 50%. But the golden hour was between 7 and 8 p.m, when staff slapped 90% reductions on anything that would not survive the night. Pensioners mapped these times like train timetables. Doris from Wolverhampton told the Express she had it down to a 15-minute window. She knew which staff member did the reductions, which aisle they started in, and exactly when the cooked chickens got their final markdown. A whole roast chicken for 30p. A leg of lamb for 50p. Tesco responded by randomising markdown times in trial stores across the Midlands in 2020. They called it improving the customer experience. Pensioners called it something else entirely. The randomisation made it harder, but it never stopped the circuit. They simply adjusted, checking more frequently, swapping intelligence at the bus stop. Number 24. Asking the butcher counter for bones. Before supermarkets swallowed the high street, every butcher gave bones away free. Marrow bones, knuckle bones, chicken carcasses, they were waste. Pensioners knew that a bag of free bones simmered with an onion, a carrot, and a bay leaf produced stock richer than anything in a Knorr cube. By the early 2000s, Tesco and Sainsbury's still gave bones away at the fresh meat counter if you asked. No charge. The trick was asking. Most customers never did. But pensioners who had lived through rationing knew that bones were not rubbish. They were the foundation of a week's worth of meals. Soups, gravies, risottos, all from something the store would have binned. Then around 2015, supermarkets started packaging bones and charging for them. Tesco began selling marrow bones for £2 a pack. What had been free for decades suddenly had a barcode. Pensioners who had been asking politely for years were told it was now company policy to sell, not give. The loophole did not close entirely. Smaller Tesco Express stores and independent butchers still hand them over if you know to ask. But the days of walking out with a carrier bag full of free bones from a superstore are largely gone. Number 23. Herb garden cuttings from the reduced section. A pot of fresh basil from Tesco costs £1 10p. A pot of fresh coriander the same. But pensioners discovered that reduced herb pots, marked down to 10p or 15p when they started wilting, were not dying at all. They were perfectly viable plants. Take them home, split the root ball into 3 or 4 sections, repot them in old margarine tubs with garden soil, and within 2 weeks you had 4 thriving herb plants. One 10p purchase produced months of fresh herbs. Some pensioners built entire kitchen window gardens from nothing but reduced section rescues. Tesco caught on when social media posts about the trick went viral around 2021. Several stores began pulling wilted herbs from shelves entirely rather than reducing them, sending them straight to waste instead of letting customers buy them cheaply. The logic was baffling. Better to bin them than let a pensioner grow basil for a year from a 10p pot. Number 22. The bread aisle at closing time. Bakery items cannot legally be sold the next day in most supermarkets once they pass their display until time. Pensioners learned that approaching the bakery counter 30 minutes before closing often meant staff would hand over unsold loaves, rolls and pastries rather than bag them for waste collection. This was not official policy. It was human kindness from staff who hated throwing away perfectly good food. In some stores, regular pensioners built quiet relationships with bakery workers. A nod, a smile, and a carrier bag of sourdough, croissants, and tiger bread appeared over the counter. No money changed hands. Aldi reportedly tightened bakery disposal procedures in several northern stores around 2022, after managers noticed stock disappearing at closing time without corresponding waste logs. Staff were told all unsold bakery items had to be logged and bagged for waste collection or charity partners. The loophole narrowed, but it never fully closed. Kindness is harder to regulate than pricing. Number 21. Foraging the supermarket car park. It sounds absurd, but the landscaping around many large Tesco and Sainsbury's stores includes edible plants. Rosemary bushes line car park borders. Apple trees shade pedestrian walkways. Bramble hedges grow wild along boundary fences. Pensioners who knew their plants would casually harvest rosemary sprigs, windfall apples and blackberries on their way in or out of the store. Free food growing 10 feet from the automatic doors. Nobody bought rosemary when there was a bush the size of a small car beside the trolley bay. In 2019, a Tesco in Somerset reportedly trimmed its rosemary hedges back to stumps after complaints from the store manager that customers were harvesting rather than buying. Whether the story is fully true or slightly embellished by local legend, it captured a truth every pensioner understood. Supermarkets would rather destroy free food than let it compete with the shelves. Number 20. Loyalty card point stacking. The Tesco Club Card was designed to track shopping habits, not to be gamed. But pensioners turned it into a free food machine. The trick was simple but required patience. Never spend points on groceries at face value. Wait for the quarterly Club Card voucher exchange, where points tripled in value at partner restaurants and days out. But here was the real loophole. Pensioners who did not eat out would swap Club Card vouchers with neighbours or family members in exchange for actual groceries. £10 of Club Card vouchers traded for £10 of real food from a neighbour's shop. The points cost nothing. The food was real. Some pensioners pooled their points across households, concentrating spending through one card to hit bonus thresholds faster. Tesco restructured its Club Card partner deals multiple times between 2020 and 2024, reducing the multiplier from triple to double, then limiting which partners qualified. Each change targeted the exact stacking behaviour pensioners had perfected over years. Number 19. The Community Fridge Network. By 2023, over 500 community fridges operated across Britain, many stocked directly from supermarket surplus. Pensioners discovered that these fridges, often located in church halls, community centres and libraries, offered perfectly good food donated by Tesco, Sainsbury's and Co-op through redistribution schemes like Fair Share and Olio. No means testing, no questions, no stigma. You simply walked in, took what you needed and walked out. A pensioner in Leeds described her weekly routine to the Yorkshire Post. Tuesday morning, community fridge at the Methodist Hall. Wednesday, Olio collection from the Tesco Express. Thursday, reduced aisle circuit. She ate well every week and her grocery bill was under £8. Supermarkets publicly championed these schemes for the positive press. But behind the scenes, some stores began routing surplus to anaerobic digestion plants rather than community redistribution, arguing it was more efficient. The food that could have fed pensioners was turned into biogas instead. Number 18. Asking for the ends at the deli counter. At the Tesco deli counter, when a block of cheese or a joint of ham reached its end, the remaining piece was often too small to slice neatly for the next customer. These ends, sometimes a quarter pound of mature cheddar or a thick wedge of honey roast ham, were traditionally given away or sold at a heavy discount to whoever asked. Pensioners who knew the trick would hover near the counter, waiting for the telltale moment when the slicer struggled with the last inch of meat. A polite request, and the end piece would be wrapped and handed over for a fraction of the price, or sometimes nothing at all. By the mid-2010s, most supermarkets formalized the process. requiring ends to be weighed, priced, and placed in the reduced section rather than given away informally. The personal transaction disappeared. The relationship between customer and counter staff was replaced by a barcode. Number 17. The Aldi bakery bag trick. Aldi's in-store bakeries sold individual rolls, croissants, and pastries using a self-service model. Customers picked items with tongs and placed them in paper bags. The loophole was in the pricing. Some items were priced per bag, not per item, and the bags were all the same size. Pensioners discovered that filling a bag carefully, stacking rolls vertically, pressing croissants flat, could yield 5 or 6 items for the price of 3. It was not theft. Everything was paid for at the correct per-bag price displayed on the shelf. But Aldi considered it against the spirit of the pricing, and in several regions between 2021 and 2023, stores switched to individual pricing with item count stickers, requiring customers to mark how many items were in each bag. The honor system was replaced by surveillance. Pensioners who had been feeding themselves and their grandchildren on cleverly packed bakery bags found themselves counted and watched. Number 16. Growing vegetables from supermarket scraps. The bottom of a head of celery from Tesco, placed in a saucer of water on a sunny windowsill, will regrow. So will spring onions, romaine lettuce, and potatoes that have started sprouting in the bag. Pensioners with even the smallest patio or windowsill turned supermarket scraps into productive little gardens. One head of celery bought for 65p produced 3 or 4 successive harvests. Spring onions placed in a jar of water regrew their green tops within a week, endlessly. Sprouting potatoes buried in a grow bag yielded a full crop within 3 months. None of this was illegal, none of it broke any rule, but it represented the exact opposite of what supermarkets needed, which was repeat purchasing. Every celery base that regrew on a pensioner's windowsill was a head of celery. Tesco did not sell. The supermarkets could not stop this one. Biology does not care about profit margins. Number 15. The prescription delivery grocery run. Many pensioners on repeat prescriptions received free home delivery from their local pharmacy. The loophole was that several pharmacy chains, including branches of Lloyd's and Well Pharmacy, located inside or adjacent to Tesco stores, allowed patients to collect prescriptions and then shop in store while there. But the real trick was subtler. Pensioners who befriended delivery drivers sometimes asked them to pick up a few grocery items while collecting the prescription. An extra pint of milk, a loaf of bread. Items were paid for honestly, but the free delivery ride extended to groceries without Tesco seeing a penny of delivery charge. This was never widespread enough for any corporate crackdown, but it represented the quiet ingenuity of pensioners who turned every free service into something that stretched further. Number 14. Supermarket cafe refill culture. Tesco cafes, Sainsbury's cafes, and Morrison's cafes all offered free hot water for pensioners who asked. Some offered free refills on filter coffee. Pensioners turned this into a daily ritual, arriving with their own tea bag in a coat pocket, ordering a cup of hot water for free, and sitting in a warm cafe for an hour during winter. The cost to the supermarket was negligible, a splash of hot water. But the value to the pensioner was enormous. Warmth, company, a reason to leave the house. Some stores quietly discouraged the practice by removing free hot water from the menu or introducing a minimum spend policy in the cafe. Morrison's drew criticism in 2022 when several branches reportedly began charging 20p for hot water that had always been free. For a pensioner counting every coin, 20p mattered. The outrage on local Facebook groups was fierce and immediate. Number 13. Batch cooking from the reduced meat aisle. Pensioners who understood freezing did not just buy one reduced item, they bought 10. A Sunday evening sweep of the yellow stickers could yield 5 trays of mince, 3 packs of chicken thighs, and 2 joints of pork, all at 90% off. Total spend, maybe £3. Taken home, portioned and frozen immediately, that haul represented a month of protein. Defrost 1 portion each morning. Slow cook it by evening. The freezer became a pensioner's savings account, and the reduced aisle was the deposit window. Tesco introduced purchase limits on reduced items in several trial stores around 2021, capping the number of yellow sticker items a single customer could buy in one transaction. The stated reason was fairness. The practical effect was stopping pensioners from stocking up. The limits were quietly dropped in most stores after customer complaints, but the intent was clear. Number 12. The Allotment Exchange Network. Allotments across Britain have always produced gluts. Too many courgettes in August. A mountain of runner beans in September. Pensioners on allotments developed informal exchange networks, swapping surplus vegetables with neighbours, fellow plot holders, and even strangers at the allotment gate. No money changed hands. Carrots for apples, beans for beetroot, eggs from backyard hens for a bag of potatoes. These networks operated entirely outside the supermarket economy. Every courgette swapped at the allotment gate was a courgette not bought at Tesco. Some allotment associations formalised the practice with swap tables, where surplus was left for anyone to take. Local councils occasionally tried to restrict commercial activity on allotments, but swapping food for food was never commercial. It was community, and it fed pensioners who could not afford the inflated price of a Tesco courgette wrapped in plastic. Number 11. Supermarket price matching for cheaper elsewhere. Between 2014 and 2020, Tesco ran a brand guarantee scheme that automatically refunded the difference if your basket would have been cheaper at Asda or Sainsbury's. Pensioners turned this into a science. They would check competitor prices before shopping, deliberately buying items they knew were cheaper elsewhere, and collecting the automatic refund at the till. A weekly shop that should have cost £40 could generate £3 or £4 in refund vouchers, effectively free food on the next visit. The system was designed to build loyalty. Pensioners used it as a discount engine. Tesco scrapped brand guarantee in 2020, replacing it with club card prices, a system that required data surrender rather than rewarding price awareness. The pensioners who had mastered the old system found their knowledge suddenly worthless. Number 10. Fishing for free. A rod licence for a pensioner over 65 in England and Wales costs nothing. Free. A senior rod licence from the Environment Agency entitles the holder to fish in thousands of miles of rivers, canals, and public lakes. Pensioners who fished regularly brought home perch, roach, pike, and trout without spending a penny beyond the cost of bait. Some caught enough to supplement their diet meaningfully, filleting and freezing catches for midweek suppers. A pensioner in Norfolk described his routine to the EDP. 3 mornings a week on the Broads, enough pike and perch to feed himself and his wife and still give fillets to the neighbour. The freshest fish in the county, and it cost him nothing but time. No supermarket could compete with that, and no supermarket could stop it. Number 9. The formal banning. In 2018, a pensioner in Bristol was reportedly asked not to return to her local supermarket for 6 months after staff accused her of systematically clearing the reduced section every single evening. She had been buying up to 30 yellow sticker items per visit, filling 2 trolleys and taking them home to freeze, batch cook, and distribute to other pensioners on her street. The store argued she was preventing other customers from accessing reduced items. She argued she was preventing food waste. The story made local news and sparked furious debate. Was she gaming the system, or was she feeding her community? Either way, the message from the store was clear. Buying too much cheap food was treated as a problem, not a solution. Number 8. Gleaning from farmers' fields. After harvest, fields across Britain are left with crops the machines missed. Bent carrots, undersized potatoes, apples too small for supermarket specifications. Gleaning, the ancient practice of collecting leftover crops, is legal in Britain with the farmer's permission and has been revived by organisations like the Gleaning network. Pensioners who lived near farmland joined gleaning events, filling bags and boxes with perfectly good produce that would otherwise rot in the field. The food was free, the exercise was good, and the haul was often enormous. One gleaning session could yield 20 kilos of potatoes or 15 kilos of apples. Supermarkets could not stop this because they had already rejected the produce. These were the carrots too wonky for Tesco's shelves, the apples too small for Sainsbury's bags. What the supermarkets threw away, pensioners picked up. Number 7. Wild blackberry and elderflower foraging. Every August and September, hedgerows across Britain drip with free blackberries. Elder trees flower in June, giving up blossoms that make cordial, fritters and champagne. Pensioners who knew their hedgerows could gather kilos of wild fruit in a single afternoon walk. Blackberry crumble, blackberry jam, elderflower cordial that rivaled anything Belvoir sold for £3.50 a bottle. The foraging was legal on public land and common footpaths. It required nothing but a carrier bag and a willingness to get scratched. Some pensioners made enough jam to last the year and gave jars as Christmas gifts. Every jar was a product Tesco could not sell. Every crumble was a pudding that never entered the supermarket supply chain. Number 6. Olio and Too Good To Go apps. Technology caught up with the loopholes. Apps like Too Good To Go let pensioners buy magic bags of surplus food from supermarkets, bakeries and cafes for a fraction of the retail price. A £10 bag of assorted groceries for £3.09. Olio connected neighbours, letting anyone list surplus food for free collection. A pensioner could open the app, see that someone 3 streets away had leftover home baking and collect it within the hour. These apps industrialised the pensioner's instinct for waste prevention. But supermarkets maintained an uneasy relationship with them. Some stores participated enthusiastically, others pulled out, uncomfortable with the optics of their own surplus being sold cheaply through a third party. Number 5. The church and community lunch circuit. Across Britain, churches, community halls and charitable organisations run free or heavily subsidised hot lunches for pensioners. A 2-course meal for £1 or nothing at all. Soup, a main course, pudding and a cup of tea. Some pensioners attended 2 or 3 different community lunches each week, building a social calendar around free meals. Monday at the Baptist Church, Wednesday at the Age UK Centre, Friday at the Salvation Army Hall. The food was home-cooked, plentiful, and came with company that no Tesco meal deal could match. Supermarkets could not compete with this because it was never about the food alone. It was about warmth, conversation, and someone asking how you were. No barcode for that. Number 4. The grandparent garden economy. Pensioners with gardens grew potatoes, runner beans, onions, tomatoes, and soft fruit in quantities that slashed their grocery bills to almost nothing during summer and autumn. A £10 bag of seed potatoes produced enough to last from July to Christmas. Runner bean plants costing £2 yielded beans for 3 months. The surplus went to children, grandchildren and neighbours. In some streets, pensioner gardens fed half the road. The supermarket lost every transaction that the garden produced, and the garden asked for nothing in return but time and a bit of compost. Number 3. The Egg Lady Network. In towns and villages across Britain, pensioners who kept a few backyard hens became the egg ladies of their neighbourhoods. 3 or 4 hens produced more eggs than one household could eat. The surplus was sold at the back door for 50p a half dozen, or swapped for vegetables, jam or a slice of cake. No packaging, no food miles, no supermarket margin. Just fresh eggs, often still warm, handed over the garden fence. Supermarkets could not touch this microeconomy. It existed entirely outside their reach, sustained by trust and a few chickens scratching about in the flower beds. Number 2. The WI and Mothers Union Preserve Network. Every autumn, Women's Institute and Mothers Union members turned surplus garden fruit into jams, chutneys, pickles and marmalades that circulated through church fetes, village sales and private networks for months. Pensioners who could no longer garden traded labour for preserves, helping with the making in exchange for jars to take home. A single afternoon in a church kitchen could produce 40 jars of blackberry jam from foraged fruit that cost nothing. Those jars replaced Tesco's own brand preserves all winter long. The skill was passed between generations of women who understood that a pot of jam was not just food. It was currency, community, and quiet rebellion against the supermarket shelf. Number 1. The Sunday roast stretcher. The greatest loophole of all was never a loophole at all. It was a philosophy. British pensioners who grew up during rationing understood something that no supermarket loyalty scheme could replicate. One chicken feeds Monday too, and Tuesday, and Wednesday. The Sunday roast was never just Sunday's meal. Monday was cold chicken sandwiches. Tuesday was chicken soup from the carcass. Wednesday was chicken fried rice from the last scraps. The bones went into stock that flavoured Thursday's vegetable soup. 4 days of meals from a single reduced chicken that cost £1.50 at 8 p.m. on Saturday. No waste, no extra spend, no Tesco meal deal required. This was the loophole supermarkets could never shut down, because it lived in the heads of every pensioner who had ever watched a mother stretch a shilling into a week's worth of dinners. It could not be randomised, barcoded or banned. It was knowledge, passed down at kitchen tables, whispered between generations, and practiced every single week in homes across Britain, where the kettle was always on, and nothing, absolutely nothing, ever went to waste. These 25 loopholes tell one story. British pensioners have been outwitting supermarkets for decades, using nothing but patience, knowledge, and the stubborn refusal to pay full price for food that would otherwise be binned. Try one this week. Start with the bones. Ask at the counter. See what happens. Then come back and tell me which loophole you are going to make your own.